In Kenya, a group of farmers are learning sustainable new farming methods to improve their crops while safeguarding the environment. The Biocarbon Fund targets smallholder and small-scale farmers and teaches sustainable agricultural land management practices to improve their yields and earn carbon credits. And now to discuss this further, we've got our resident analyst, Mr. William Gumede. Thank you, as always, for coming through to join us. Now, we're seeing a transitioning in farming methods. I mean, from basic to more industrialized, cleaner ways. What's brought this change about, really?
Our challenge in Africa is that, although we have all of the fertile land, we're still having millions of people going hungry and so on. And although most Africans actually are eking out a living in the agricultural space, they still don't supply food for themselves, for their communities, or either for export. So the real challenge has been the last decade and so on. How do we invest in agriculture in such a way that we don't harm the environment, while at the same time we increase production so that we can, as Africans, be self-sufficient, but that we also can export so that we can use agriculture really to lift economic growth even higher.
Now, where do we get this kind of support so that Africans learn rather to, in a sense, eat off the land, really?
Yeah. Now, the first thing, for the last couple of years, sadly, African governments have, very few of the African governments have actually given agriculture departments the kinds of budgets they need. I mean, if you look around now, if you look at the sort of 53, 54 African countries, military budgets are often still more than agricultural budgets. Now, if you really want to make agriculture really at the pinnacle of our economic growth going forward, then we really must, as a percentage of our national budgets, we really have to spend around 10%. Of our national budgets on agriculture. So that really is important. We can have to do that. But secondly, also, we need a political will, to push agriculture. Because often, if you think about it, these sort of small farmers in African countries, in the rural areas, often they don't have political power. Often they are not influential in the ruling governments and so on. So they're kind of on the margins.
Now, let's discuss some of the new applications that then could be introduced and be more compatible for African countries and rural villages. What would actually work in the African context?
I mean, in the African context, I think the very, very first thing is we have to increase productivity. So, I mean, if we, because we have so many small-scale farmers, if we can help them, to farm more productively, firstly, but also secondly, to diversify what they're producing. I mean, often, the small farmers only produce one thing. So, what we have to do now is we have to get them to do other kinds of things, and also, from an economic point of view, also to produce the kind of things that can be exported globally and so on. So that's going to be very, very crucial. And we also have to use new technology, because that really is crucial for Africa. Because we've been lagging behind, industrially, we really can use new kinds of technology really to almost push agriculture production.
Now, some effective interventions like chemical fertilizer, pesticides, they do exist. However, not always environmentally sustainable. What are the alternatives that we can speak about?
It's going to be very, very important that we, that we learn the lessons in Africa from the past. That we, we're going to have to produce agricultural projects based on sustainable ways. And sustainable ways would mean that we're going to have to use, the material that we have, and we're going to have to use the organic material that's there already, rather than, say, chemicals and, genetically modified seeds and so on, that we can have to use, from the ground, what we got. And that's going to be very, very important, because in an African context, agriculture and the land and the resources is our competitive advantage. Now, once we farm in an unsustainable way, we erode our competitive advantage. But the other thing is also, what has been missing, many of our farmers in many African countries don't have access to finance and credit. And that really is very crucial. So we're going to have to steer our banks, our private banks, our state-owned banks, to to make finance accessible, to farmers.
And just lastly, I mean, some of the initiatives like Kenya's Biocarbon Fund have the backing of global bodies. At what point would you say that they could actually stand on their own in terms of dependency and longevity?
Yeah, no, so the Kenyan example is, I think, is a very good example that other African countries can learn from, because if we want to use sustainable methods, of farming, we also have to incentivize that. So, if we have, if farmers are using sustainable techniques, techniques that don't harm the environment, we have to give people, rewards, whether it is tax breaks, which is extra credit, and so on. So that's why it is very, very crucial. Now, the problem really with projects, small-scale projects, is how do we bring it to scale? How do we make it bigger? And how do we use it in other places also? So that's going to be a very, very crucial challenge. But, another challenge and also an opportunity for Africans now is that if, we really have to create alternative African markets also. So when we talk about regional integration, sustainable agriculture really is a very good opportunity, because if we can diversify the products that our farmers are, planting and producing, then we can also, export it to other African countries that don't have it. And, in that way, we can actually grow our economies.